I'm joined now by Flav from Spurs fanzine and podcast The Fighting Cock. Flav, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
So it's turning into quite a promising season for Spurs at the moment. What have you made of Pochettino's campaign so far?
Well, it's been a fantastic season so far. We've had a few blips. You're going to expect that having a new manager coming in. It's been a massive change from Sherwood and AVB before. The football was quite pragmatic. AVB has turned it around completely. And at the beginning of the season, we didn't know what to expect really about the kind of football he's going to play, whether the players are going to adapt to it. And certainly there were some issues with Adebayor and Kabul and Lennon, to name a few, who were struggling to adapt to the system. It seems to be clicking now. He's bringing in some young players. It's great to have young players at the club, you know, like Harry Kane, Bentaleb, Mason, Rose, Townsend, all people that have come through our youth setup. And they're players you can get behind and they feel like they're doing something on the pitch for the fans, not just their paycheck.
Well, you mentioned Harry Kane there. Are you surprised by how far he's come in such a short amount of space of time?
About 3 years ago, I put out a tweet saying, I know he's young, but Harry Kane will never, ever make it at Tottenham. And to this day, it still gets retweeted. It's a nightmare. Yeah, I'm shocked, completely shocked. We saw glimpses of it towards the end of last season, about 3 or 4 games in. Towards the end of the season, he started. And he was scoring a couple of goals, and you're thinking maybe he's got something. And he started playing in the Europa League at the beginning of the season. And everyone's seen it, and everyone's shocked. You just can't quite believe what's happened. And again, it's amazing because he's come through our youth team. I know we get a bit of a stick because he once wore an Arsenal shirt, but you know he is one of our own. He come through our youth academy, and it feels like one of us are out there, even though he's on 20 grand a week or whatever it is he's on. It is an amazing thing, and it's even shocking to the teams he's gone out on loan to, because their fans are like Leicester. He had a bit of stick up there. Millwall, we had a decent loan there, but by and large at Norwich he was just awful, and we just thought I thought he was a lump, and he's clearly much more than that. He's strong, he's technical, he's got a great shot. His key attribute is finding the target, even when you expect him not to. He'll find the bottom corner. He just seems, I know it's a cliche, but he does know where the goal is. If he's back to goal, he's going to spin and get a shot off, and he's our most dangerous player, and I never thought I'd say that ever.
And then on the other side, what have you made of West Ham's season so far? Obviously not too far from Spurs in the league, 8th place. What do you make of everything we're doing at the moment?
I was a little bit worried, actually. In the beginning of the season, when you're above us, I know how much you hate us. And you're doing well. I'm surprised about the news today about Allardyce. Looks like he might be on his way. And I can understand it to a certain extent, because he's not the most likeable man. And, you said he had issues with Sullivan. But you're doing all right. You're playing good football. You've got some good players there. I'm a massive, massive fan of Song, despite him being a goon, a scumbag. He's quality on the ball. I mean, when he gets the football, you can see that he wouldn't. I can understand why he went to Barcelona. His passing ability and the way he breaks up play, it's just something to behold at times. Yeah, you're playing football, and in the first game of the season, when we nicked that win, I thought Downing had an amazing game. I think he's playing more central now for you lot, so he always seems to turn up against Spurs. So I'd be a little bit anxious about what he's going to do. But yeah, you're having a good season. You should be well chuffed. I'm surprised that there's going to be a change in management, but Bilic and I'm not sure about David Moyes. Possibly a boring man in football, but I think Bilic would be a good thing for you.
And then what do you make of the West Ham Spurs rivalry, or non-rivalry, as some may suggest? The relationship between the two clubs gets a lot of attention. Spurs fans maybe often downplay that there is any type of sort of hatred between the two sides whatsoever.
No, there is a hatred between us. I think it stems from off the field rather than on it. There's no denying that our rival's Arsenal because of the history and everything they've done, and coming into our area and doing everything that's wrong with football, essentially. When you're the bastards of football, it's hard not to hate them. So, but there is a rivalry between West Ham and Spurs, and Spurs fans that say there ain't, they're just being a little bit bitter, and they're doing it to wind you up. But I think most rivalry comes from the people you meet, really. I grew up in Holloway, which is bandit country, and you know, I can't do anything other than hate Arsenal over any other team. If I'm going to get pelters for this, but I've had begrudging respect from West Ham, actually. They're a grassroots football club, but they're still real. They haven't, I mean, I know you're moving to the Olympic Stadium, but haven't been too badly seduced by Premier League money. They're still a real football club, much more so than Arsenal, Chelsea, City. And I think there is, despite the hatred between Tottenham and West Ham, we're quite alike in some respects. Certainly the fan base. And I quite like it. I enjoyed... I didn't enjoy the game so much, the League Cup game last December or January when you snatched that win. But I enjoyed it outside. I enjoyed the rivalry. I enjoyed there was something in the air that night. You know what I mean? There was a lot of rowdiness, and it was exciting. And I'm not a proponent for football violence in any way, shape or form, but there needs to be that little edge between teams, and that's been missing for so long. Football's such a it's become such a kind of sanitised thing with the Premier League, that kind of edginess that there is between Tottenham and West Ham, Tottenham and Arsenal, West Ham, Chelsea, West Ham, Millwall, that needs to remain, because that's what football was built on.
And then there were widespread reports on deadline day that Levy blocked a last-minute move for Adebayor.
Don't want him, mate.
What do you make of that whole situation there? Is that Levy being bitter towards West Ham, or was it to do with the place in the table, the closeness of the two teams?
I would say all of that sort of stuff. I would be silly to sell you Adebayor, given you're still within. You're easily within touching distance of where we are. So yeah, I mean, it makes business sense not to release Adebayor, but don't worry too much about that. I mean, it's a shame for Andy Carroll to get the injury that he has got, and I'm not sure how you're going to cope without him, because he is a dangerous player. He's hard to play against. He's a handful in the air. All those sort of cliches that are usually attached to him. But Adebayor isn't a man that will drag you out of the mire. If things are going well for him, if he's getting service, he's doing great. He's had a lot of problems, actually, a lot of personal problems with his family at the moment, and I don't think you'd be buying a player that would set your team alight. So don't worry too much about that. There is obviously the agenda between Levy and your board, but Levy's a prickly man. You know what I mean? He seems to have run into trouble with everyone he deals with, and he's good at what he does, and he's first and foremost, he's the way he sets his stall out is to ensure that it's the best for Tottenham, not necessarily the best for football fans or support, but the best for progressing our football club, whether that be moving to Stratford or not selling Adebayor to West Ham. For the record, I'd never want to go to Stratford. How do you feel about Stratford?
What, moving to the Olympic Stadium?
Yeah,
I'm fairly happy about it, to be honest. I mean, I think it'll be a big test, but if we do it right, it'll be okay. I think a lot will depend on where we are in the league at the time, to be honest. If we're doing well, we're pushing for Europe, then I think we'll sell out without much problem. But say we are playing bad football and sort of lower down the league, then I could worry a bit maybe about how it will go. I mean, I think it's necessary for the club to move forward. We have got to upgrade. Whether the Olympic Stadium will be a better option than expanding Upton Park remains to be seen, I guess.
I mean, we're in a similar situation with White Hart Lane, aren't we? Because we're knocking it down essentially and rebuilding. And I mean, I'm not so sure you will sell it out. And that isn't a slight. I think Spurs have struggled to sell out 58,000. I think there's an issue with football, and I think the bubble's bursting a little bit. Attendances are down, despite what you might read in the press. So, it's a big thing. Everyone needs to expand if things are going well, I guess. And Spurs do, and West Ham do, obviously. But I'm glad we weren't going to Stratford. I was chuffed to bits when you won that, to be fair.
And then going into this weekend's game, what's your prediction for how the match is going to unfold? I
think Spurs will win 5-0. No. I think we're going to win 5-0 every game, to be honest. So this one's no different. I don't know. I thought we were going to beat you every time we went last year. Do you know what I mean? I didn't think you'd end up smashing us 3 times on the bounce. I made a joke on the podcast that we do that the week before we played you at White Hart Lane and Renvelle Morrison tore us up. I said, wouldn't it be fun? I mean, can you imagine losing 3-0 at home to West Ham? And obviously, I didn't have to imagine for very long. It was a horrible, horrible experience. But you know, you can't tell. We've been playing really well. All I would say is that even when we've lost, we haven't looked too bad. Liverpool were relatively unlucky. Palace, we could have easily won that game. The only game I remember us playing particularly bad was Stoke at home, where we were a little bit lethargic and plodded along a little bit. But I think we're going to turn up, and to be honest, I do think we'll win. 2 or 3-0 maybe. The thing is with Pochettino's system and the ideologies and philosophies that he's placed in the players is that they don't seem to lose heart. Even if we get a goal behind, they're still chasing, running, and they're so fit as well. They're literally, the amount of late goals we've got it's not a fluke. It's down to the players just never stopping running. And our game's based so much on pressing and not allowing any space in midfield that when that works, it's almost impossible to play against. When we played against Arsenal, I know we only beat them 2-1, but we destroyed them, and that's not, removing partisanship away. We did. Any neutral would look like. Did you watch the game? Yeah. We destroyed them, didn't we? Yeah. so there you go. Do you know what I mean? And that was down to Bentaleb and Mason in midfield, and they just don't stop. They don't stop harrying, and that would be an interesting battle between. I know, is it Coyote? Is that right?
Yeah, Kiyase.
He's broke his arm, so he won't play. So that's good. But Song in midfield. Who will play?
It'll be Noble, Nolan, quite possibly, depending on our injury situation.
I think Nolan will struggle against our high tempo play. I've been really impressed with Creswell actually on the left hand side. He was an excellent buy at Ipswich, wasn't it? He's quality. I like the look of him a lot. So yeah, the midfield will be where it's won and lost, as always is the way with Tottenham. So.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much, Flav. Let's hope your prediction isn't right, and worst of luck for the rest of the season.
Cheers, mate. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Well, thanks for those comments, Flav. Now, for 1 week only, we've banished Chris predicts for an awful set of results in the last few weeks. In his place, we've got someone who's going to be far more profitable in calling the results. Steve predicts. Steve, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me today.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah, so hello, guys. We're joined now by Keith Brown and Piers. So, looking ahead, what are your predictions going into this one?
Well, I think after the shocker of the last 4 weeks, the roller coaster up and down, and the terrible result against West Brom, I think all the team are going to really be up for it this week. So I'm hoping that it's going to be a 2-1 win for the Irons.
2-1 win. Well, you've got that 14-1 there. Probably pretty good odds.
Worth some money, I think.
Yeah, definitely worth a tenner. Do you guys think that's a good bet?
Yeah, looking at Sacco as well as first goal scorer, 15-2 with that.
And Piers,
some money to have, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. And Piers, you were mentioning that 3-1 West Ham is 40-1, whereas it's only 12-1 for Tottenham. Surely there's a bet there.
Yeah, there really is. I fancy us to put in a good performance, like I said, and maybe nick a late winner. But my personal thing is 1-1, which is
that's 13-2.
13-2.
Again, yeah,
so
decent
it's
odds
not
there.
a bad bet either.
Steve, who's going to be scoring first, West Ham then?
I think it's Sacco. I think Sacco and Valencia goals with 2-1, as I said. So yeah, it looks like it could be a good bet.
Excellent. Well, yeah, let's hope you do better than your brother, who hopefully can return next week. But yeah, let's pray for a West Ham win.
Cheers, Steve.
See you later.
Cheers, Steve.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Steve. Now, just to end, gentlemen, obviously, Kenny, your father, obviously enshrined in West Ham folklore as well. What can you tell us from his career at West Ham and maybe how the club has developed since then to you and now to the present day?
Blimey. Well, I think the biggest thing was, I know if you speak to Dad, the main thing was that they were all local players. The majority of them all lived within, sort of 10 mile of the club. It was a very close-knit group. I mean, obviously you just don't get that anymore at any club. And I think it was highlighted because they were so successful. They had a great, I think it was 64, 65. They've won the FA Cup, they've won the European Cup Winners' Cup. And it was a real, like I said, you speak to Dad, there was a real bond between the players. And the families. It was all very much the wives and the kids, and they were it was very much a family club, and I think that's where it sort of grown from. Obviously, for different reasons, it's not like that, and it will never ever go back to that, unfortunately. But I think over the years, I mean, I remember coming to West Ham where I was up in Norwich, and you know, you're playing in the in youth cup games. Or in the old combination, the reserve league, and you used to play at all the grounds. In them days, you played at, you know, the Upton Parks, Highbury's, White Hart Lanes, you know, wherever you were, that you played at the main ground. But you'd always, whenever I came to West Ham, it was always, how's your dad? Oh, we love your dad here. Oh, we've got great men. Nice. And it was the same people working then, you know, that when Dad was there.
Yeah, family.
So there was a real connection to the club. Obviously, in later years when I signed, again, there were still people at the club that were there when my dad was there.
That must have been a moment.
So,
that must have been so proud when.
I think, yeah, both my mum and dad, and you know, I lost my mum when you know, playing at West Ham, but I think it was a real, you know, and I'm not, I don't talk about it lightly. I think it was a real, you know, it's a massive honour to do that, you know, and to have the opportunity to sort of follow in your dad's footsteps at such a big club and a good club. You know, I don't underestimate that at all. And it was a real honour and a privilege, yeah.
That's great to hear. So, to wrap up, I just want to say thank you to all my brilliant guests this week, Piers and Kenny on the sofa, Flav from the Spurs fanzine, Steve Predicts, and the man behind the dugout. Gentlemen, it's been great having you here. I think that all that's left to say now is, come on, you Irons. Come on, you Irons.
Come on, you Irons.
That was a good one.
Yeah,
Well done, mate. Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
You're brilliant.
Top man. Cheers, yeah, brilliant.